Well, going back to our earlier program, we were looking at the world in denial. We're not looking at how things are. We're really avoiding. We're not being conscious.
Right.
And so once again, how do we break out of this trap that's not only personal, but it's collective, because it's creating the conditions for our own demise?
Yeah. Well, I think underneath, I think we all know a deeper truth, and that's what's fascinating, although we've been conditioned in this way. And there's something that fascinates me in hypnosis, talking about cultural hypnosis. There was an experiment they did actually down at Stanford many years ago where they asked someone to put their hand in a bucket of ice cold water. Well, they didn't tell them it was ice cold. They hypnotized the person. They said, put your hand in this bucket of water. It was actually ice cold, but they just said it was ordinary warm water. And how does it feel? And the person was saying, under hypnosis, it feels fine. They said, does it hurt? No. And actually, cold water is very painful.
Very painful, yeah.
They said to the other hand, okay, without looking, let this hand write. And the other hand started writing, it hurts, it's cold, stop the experiment. And they call this the hidden observer.
The hidden observer.
And so even under hypnosis, there's a part of us which knows the truth. And I think that's true in our culture. We're hypnotized by the media, by advertising, just get this, do this. But I think deep down inside, we all know that isn't the way. We know it doesn't work. So, I mean, one of the ways I do this myself, I have a couple of questions I ask myself whenever I'm feeling I've got to have something be a certain way. First of all, I say, if I got this, whatever it is, this person to be a certain way, this new product, would I actually be really happy forever after? And the answer is no. I might be happy for a moment, but sooner or later I'd find something else to be discontent about. And conversely, if I didn't have it, could I still feel okay? And the answer always is yes. And so those questions for me just release me from that attachment. But I think the other thing that's really important for me, and I think a lot of people are finding this, is to find some way to just stop in the day and let the mind relax. And that's what meditation does, or other forms of relaxation. Exactly. Some people do it through Tai Chi. There's many different ways of doing it. But to let the mind relax, because we're so busy doing, trying, wanting, worrying, we never let the mind relax.
Right.
And when we do let the mind relax, then we begin to come back to as what I call natural mind.
Natural mind.
And so all those flames of desire and wanting and fear and greed, they're not being fanned. And I think when you're feeling at ease in yourself, then I think you can see the situation at hand much better and see what's needed.
Yeah. I think this is so fundamental to our future as a human family. We either learn how to step behind our greed and fear and the pushes and pulls of that, or I think we're destined to just break down as a species.
Yeah, and that's why I think in a way this crisis, we could see it as a spiritual crisis. That we look at it, as we did in the last one, as a sort of environmental crisis, climate change, these sorts of things. But I think ultimately it's a crisis of consciousness, and it's about waking up to discover truths about ourselves, how we can actually be more at ease, more compassionate human beings.
So how do we bring that then into our lives as a human family? Here we are at a time of extraordinary either breakdown or breakthrough as a human family. The challenge is to wake up, to become conscious, to become reflective of what we're doing. What do you have to offer as suggestions for this time of transition and crisis?
I think it's time to really value our own development. Our own inner development and the development of others. But I think particularly our own, because it's easy to see where other people are going wrong, to see, it's those greedy bankers or whatever it is. And to recognize we all have this. I mean, I have aspects of greed in myself. I have aspects of insecurity. It's in me. And I can't just tell other people, you must change. I'm the only person I really have responsibility for in the world, truly. Have responsibility for. And if I can't do that myself, how on earth can I tell anybody else to do it?
Ask other people to
So I think doing it, working with ourselves is really important. And the payoffs there are we feel better for it. It's not just like I need to deal with my fear issues or my greed issues in order to have the world be a better place. I mean, that certainly will happen. But also, if we deal with those issues, we feel better.
We feel better.
So we're actually enjoying life more. And if we're enjoying life more and more ease in life, then I think we're going to behave in a different way.
Indeed. I want to go back to what you're saying about natural mind and an easeful enjoyment of life. And I do feel that if we're more relaxed, if we're in what you're calling natural mind, what we're engaged with is actually the mind of the universe. That the universe, actually, we're not just sort of existentially separate beings, but we actually live, I think, in an ecology of consciousness. And the natural mind is just relaxing into the mind that supports the entire universe. And what we're trying to do, in my understanding of being here, is the universe is a place to learn. And we're in a learning mode right now. And we're trying to learn how to move beyond a thinking consciousness into a more reflective consciousness, a witnessing consciousness, an observing consciousness as a species. And what you're talking about is how we're trapped in this thinking consciousness, and it's time to break out, or we're in big trouble as a human family.
Yeah, and this is something our culture hasn't focused on. We haven't really looked at. We've been so good at material development, material technology. We've become masters at manipulating and changing the world around. We hardly know about our inner being. And there's a lovely parable here, which one of my favorite ones, of Nasruddin, who is he's a Sufi, which is sort of the mystical branch of Islam. He's often regarded as the wise fool. He's a fictional character, but the stories about him have this sort of deep truth. And one of the most well-known stories is Nasruddin, one night, he's outside his house underneath a street lamp, scrabbling around in the dirt, looking for something, and the neighbor comes along and says, "Oh, have you lost something? Can I help you?" And he says, "Yeah, I've lost the key to my house." And so the neighbor says, "Oh, well, that's important. Let me help you find it." And he gets down on his hands and knees, and they're scrabbling around underneath the street lamp looking for the key. "I don't find it." And he says, "Well, where did you lose it? Where exactly did you lose it? Where did you drop it?" He said, "Oh, somewhere in the house." And he said, "Well, excuse me, what are you doing looking for it out here?" And he says, "Well, there's more light out here."
There's more light.
And, we can laugh, but I think this is very, very true of how we conduct ourselves. The key we've lost is an inner key. It's an inner key to how to be at ease in ourselves, how to connect with the natural mind, how to basically become more fulfilled as human beings. The key is an inner key. But the mind is mysterious. It's like it's dark in there. The world out here, the physical world, we have a lot of light. We know what to do. We know how to manipulate it. So we keep on going to the outer world, thinking if I just get the outer world right, then I'll feel okay.
I think that shift to integrate the inner world is critical to our collective future and how we relate to that world. I think of Lily Tomlin, who looked at our world around us. She said, the problem with the rat race is even if you win, you're still a rat. And what we're looking at is we're looking at the world out there, we're running this rat race, and even if we win the race, in the terms of the society out there, we're still a rat in that rat race. And what I hear you saying is there's a bigger race underway here in the universe. And it's a race of evolutionary awakening, and it's awakening to our deeper, larger capacities as human beings that we're actually kind of shutting off, that are natural capacities that are resident within us.
And what I find fascinating is that there's a shift that's beginning to happen, that more and more people are beginning to look at this in themselves. And I think it really started back in the 60s. There was a whole awakening back then that people began to realize, one of the reasons the world isn't working is because of the way we are, our consciousness. And people started getting into meditation, into different spiritual stuff, but that's been maturing over the last 50 years now.
A whole generation,
And many, many people are beginning to look at how can we actually develop ourselves, wake up, relieve
Indeed.
ourselves of some of these dysfunctional ways. And this is getting huge, millions and millions of people. So I see this groundswell that's
Indeed.
happening.
Indeed. And experientially, I mentioned before in an earlier program, in the early 1960s, 22% of the adult population in the United States said they had had a mystical experience of profound connection. I would say an experience of natural mind, as you put it, 22%. And today, that's not 22%, it's 49%. It's more than doubled in this generation. So I think you're exactly right that we have had a generation that has been awakening. And we're in a transformation, and this is a critical time to pull the shades back and look at those assumptions that have really held us back as a species.
And I think, I used the word spiritual earlier, I think what's happening in this awakening is we are collectively rediscovering the essential wisdom that's in all the spiritual traditions.
Absolutely.
It's not about any particular religion.
That's right.
The religions, in a way, have they've got mistranslated things over time. I think a lot of them have lost the real spark.
Yes.
There's a universal wisdom there.
Yeah.
And we are rediscovering that in contemporary terms, but doing it collectively.
Doing it collectively. And I'd go back to your phrase, natural mind, and what we're discovering in all of the world's wisdom traditions is an understanding of a natural mind resident within the universe and resident within ourselves, and we connect with one another through that natural mind that's pervasive throughout the universe.
Well, I think it's there in all creatures.
In all creatures,
and we are the ones who screw it up. We're screwing it up inside ourselves. Most of us aren't living at ease, at peace most of the time, and because of that, we're screwing up the world. This belief system we touched on earlier, believing what you have or do makes you happy, it doesn't work for us.
The outer
only
world
in the short term
reflects.
And it doesn't work for the outer world, no. That's where we started, really. I think most of the things that are going wrong in the world have this human psychological ingredient in there, and until we really take that seriously, we're not going to solve the problems.
Well, that is a profound challenge for a society so steeped in materialism to step back, take a hard look in the social mirror of media, let's say, at what we're doing to ourselves and the world, and to see the kind of possibilities that you've been sharing with us. So this has been a wonderful exploration. I really appreciate your those insights, Pete. And in the future, in Pete and Duane's window, we're going to be exploring other possibilities and programs, including one that I'm really looking forward to, and that's where we look at Pete exploring the world of whales and dolphins and the consciousness and other realms of our life experience. So thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again on Pete and Duane's window.
And if you have any comments, then just go to peteandduane.com and let us know what you think about the show.
Great.